Problem number 1, a quality control manager at a factory selects 7 light bulbs at random for inspection out of every 400 light bulbs produced. At this rate, how many light bulbs will be inspected if the factory produces 20,000? Basically, all you need to do here is set up a proportion. 7 light bulbs for every 400 produced equals how many light bulbs, x, over 20,000 light bulbs produced. Here to solve, we're going to cross multiply, so I have 400x. That's going to be equal to 7 times 20,000, or 140,000. And here we're going to divide both sides by 400. Now this particular question came from a section where you weren't allowed to use your calculator. So just to review long division, we're going to go 400 into 140,000. In this case, 400 goes into 1,400 3 times. 3 times 400 is 1,200. We're going to subtract. Here we're going to be left with 200. We're going to bring down the 0. And then 400 goes into 2,005 times. 5 times 400 is 2,000. And here when we drop down the 0, 400 times 0 is 0. So here your answer is 350 light bulbs. Problem 2, some values of a linear function f are shown in the table above. Which of the following defines f? Basically, f of x is just a way of writing y in what we call function notation. So here they tell you when x is equal to 1, f of x, or y, is equal to 5. When x is equal to 3, y is 13. So basically, if you can just think about function notation as x's and y's, we're just going to try to figure out which of the 4 equations models those points. And this is a question where you just simply are going to take all the different answer choices and see which answer choice works for all the points. For example, answer choice A, y equals 2x plus 3. If that's the correct answer, all 3 of these sets of points have to work. So if I plug in, for example, 1, 5, y is 5. That equals 2 times x, 2 times 1, plus 3. Well, 2 times 1 plus 3 is 5, so that equation works for the point 1, 5. But it has to work for all of the points. If I take the second point, 3, 13, I plug in y is 13 and x is 3, you see that it doesn't work. 2 times 3 is 6, 6 plus 3 is 9. That does not equal 13. So answer choice A is incorrect. All we're going to do is test all the different points and see which works in which equation. And here you're going to get answer C as your answer, because if you notice, if you take all these x values, if you multiply them by 4, that's what 4x means. So 4 times 1, 4 times 3, 4 times 5. You see 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 would have to give you the 5. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 would have to give you the 13. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 1 would have to give you the 21. That's why your answer choice is letter C. So you can either plug the points in to all the different answer choices, or try to see what the relationship is. What do you have to do to the x to get the corresponding value of y, or in function notation, f of x? For problem 34, a local television station sells time slots for programs in 30-minute intervals. If the station operates 24 hours per day every day of the week, what is the total number of 30-minute time slots a station can sell for Tuesday and Wednesday? Well, here's what we're going to do. They sell programs in 30-minute intervals. So first I'm going to try to figure out how many 30-minute intervals are there per day. Well, if I take 30 and multiply it by 2, 30 minutes times 2 is 60 minutes, or 1 hour. And basically what that means is, since there's 24 hours in a day, there's going to be a total of 2 times 24, or 48 30-minute intervals per day. Right? Because if you think about it, if the intervals were 1 hour, there'd be 24 1 hour intervals, but here we're doing half of that. We're doing 30-minute intervals, so there's 48 30-minute intervals per day. But since they're talking about Tuesday and Wednesday, they're talking about 2 days, we're simply going to take the 48 and multiply it by 2. So here you're going to get 96 30-minute intervals. So here your answer is 96. In problem number 33, here you're given a line graph which displays the number of portable media players sold worldwide each year from 2006 to 2011. And the question says this. We're going to kind of translate it verbatim. The number of portable media players sold in 2008, so 2008's number, is what fraction of the number of media players sold in 2011? So if we kind of translate this verbatim here per word, in 2008, there were 100 million portable players sold. So I'm going to plug in 100 for 2008. Is in math means equals. Now I know the question says what fraction. I'm going to call that x. When I solve this equation for x is going to turn out to be a fraction. So I have 100, the 2008 value, is equals what fraction, so that's going to be x, of the portable media player sold in 2011. And in 2011, it's going to be 160. So here I'm going to have the equation 100 equals x times 160. And now to solve for x, I'm going to divide both sides by 160. So here, x is equal to the fraction, which is what we want, because the question says what fraction. And if you reduce 100 over 160, drop the zeros, and we have 10 over 16, and 2 goes into 10 5 times, 2 goes into 16 8 times. So here the fraction sold is 5 over 8. So x is going to be the fraction 5 over 8. Problem 26. Katerina is a botanist studying the production of pears by 2 types of pear trees. She noticed type A trees produce 20% more pears than type B trees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say let x be equal to the number of pears produced by type B. And now here's the tough part. 20% more. Well, if x is the number of pears produced by type B, 20% more means I'm going to take 20%, so 0.20, of x. 20% more means you take 100%, or 1, and add 20% more. So you add 20% of the same value. So that's basically going to be 1.2x, and that's going to be the number of pears produced by type A. By far, percentage questions cause students the most amount of difficulty. And you always let x be equal to the second thing mentioned, so x is going to be the number of type B pears, and then 20% more, you take what it was, which was x, and you add 20%, so 0.20 of the x. So that's 1.2. Now, here's where we get our equation. Based on Katerina's observation, the type A trees produced 144 pears. So the type A trees, so that's 1.2, produced 144 pears. So that's the equation that I'm going to use to solve for x. Here I'm going to divide both sides by 1.2. And this is a section where you weren't allowed to use a calculator. So I have x equals, and if I divide 1.2 into 144, I'm going to take the decimal point and move it once to the right. So I'll have to add a 0 after 144. And then 12 goes into 144 12 times. That's 144. I drop down the 0, and there's my answer of 120. So x is going to be 120. Now let's make sure we answer the question. How many pears did the type B trees produce? Type B is going to be x, so here our answer is going to be answer choice B, 120. On Thursday, 240 adults and children attended a show. The ratio of adults to children was 5 to 1. And when you were taught ratio questions, usually what you did was you put an X after each of the values. So here I'm going to say the ratio from adults to children is 5 to 1. So the number of adults is 5x, the number of children is 1x. It said on Thursday, 240 adults and children. So if I add up the adults, 5x, and the children, 1x, I get 240. So that gives me 6x equals 240, or x is going to be equal to 40. And the question said, how many children attended the show? The children was the x value, so there my answer is answer choice A, or 40. On an architect's drawing of the floor plan for a house, 1 inch represents 3 feet. So if you have a room that's represented on the floor plan that has sides of 3.5 inches and 5 inches, so you have this room on the plan is 3.5 by 5. What is the actual floor area of the room? Well, I have to find the area of this room, and this is a rectangle, so the area is equal to base times height. But here they told you that 1 inch corresponds to 3 feet. So since this is 5 inches, the actual dimensions is 5 times 3, or 15 feet. Since 1 inch is 3 feet, 5 inches is going to be 15 feet. And same difference over here. If this is 3.5 inches, and each inch is 3 feet, I'm just going to multiply that by 3 to get 10.5. So here the width is 10.5 feet. So now the area is base times height, so I'm going to take the 15 feet and multiply that by the 10.5 feet. So here I'm going to go 15 times 10.5, and that's going to give me 157.5 square feet. And since the question says, what is the room in square feet? There's 157.5, or answer choice D. Example 3. Scientists estimate that the Pacific Plate, one of the Earth's tectonic plates, has moved 1,060 kilometers in the past 10.3 million years. What is the average speed during that time period in centimeters per year? So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do some conversion of the units here. The question says, what is the average speed during the time period in centimeters per year? So I'm going to want to set up a fraction, centimeters per year. So what do I have going on? Well, the question says it moved 1,060 kilometers for 10.3 million years. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the 10.3 million and write that as a number. So that's 10,300,000 years. But what I need to do is I need to convert this kilometers into centimeters. Now, the prefix kilo means 1,000. So how many meters is 1,060 kilometers? If I take 1,060 and multiply it by 1,000, that's going to give me 1,060,000 meters. So this particular plate has shifted 1,060,000 meters over the 10,300,000 years. But I'm still not done converting. I have now meters. Since kilo means 1,000, that's going to be 1,060,000 meters. And now to get to centi, that's the symbol for 100. There's 100 centimeters in every meter. So now what I'm going to have to do is take this value and multiply it by 100. And that's going to give me the number of centimeters. So if I take this 1,060,000, I'm going to multiply it by 100, means I'm going to add 2 more zeros to it. So here's my value. I'm going to add 2 more zeros to it, which means that's 106 million centimeters. So I have 106 million centimeters over 10,300,000 years. And this particular question says, what is that rate? So you have to just reduce this particular fraction here. So I'm going to start canceling some zeros. So here I'm going to have 1,060 over 103. And how many times does 103 go into 1,060? Well, 103 goes into 106 one time. And it looks like I have 3 left over. And if I drop down the 0, 103 doesn't go into 30. So I have a 0 here. And then I need to add another decimal point. And 103 goes into 300 about 3 times. So which is the average speed? Answer choice B, 10.3. County Y consists of 2 districts. One district has an area of 30 square miles and a population density of 370 people per square mile. So the population density is the persons per square mile. Now what does that mean? Since there's 30 square miles and the population density is 370, if I take those two values and multiply them together, that gives me the total number of people in District 1. So that gives me 11,100 people who live in District 1. So you're basically going to take the square miles and multiply it by the population density. It says the other district, I guess I'll call it District 2, has an area of 50 square miles and a population density of 290. So there's 290 people per square mile. So I'm just going to take 290 and multiply that by 50 to get the actual number of people in that district. So there's going to be 14,500 people in that district. It says, what is the population density? How many people are there? How many people per square mile? That's the population density. How many people per square mile are there in all of County Y? Well, how many people are there in this County Y? There's 11,100 people in District 1, 14,500 people in District 2. So if I just simply add those numbers together, there's going to be 25,600 people in that county. Now, the population density is the number of people per square mile. How many square miles are there in this county? Well, since there's 30 square miles in District 1 and 50 square miles in District 2, there's a total of 80 square miles in the entire county. So the population density is going to be this 25,600 divided by 80. And if you do that division, 25,600 divided by 80, you get 320 people per square mile. And that's what the population density represents. So here, this is a grid question. Your answer would be 320. A furniture store buys its furniture from a wholesaler. For a particular table, the store usually charges its cost from the wholesaler plus 75%. See, these stores, they buy their stuff, so in this case the furniture, from one place. Let's say they bought it for $100, and then what they do, or $1,000, and then they sell it, for this particular case, plus 75%. So they add if the furniture was $1,000, they add $750, which means they sell it for $1,750. That's how the store makes money. If they bought it for $1,000, if they sold it for $1,000, they don't make any money. So here they're selling it for usually 75%. But this particular question says during a sale, the store charged the wholesale cost plus 15%. So basically they're saying if the sale price is $299, what's the usual price for the table? Well, the sale price is the wholesale price plus 15%. So it's 115% of the wholesale price. So that's what I'm going to do to try to figure out what X is. I'm going to try to figure out how much is the table when the store bought it, when the store purchased it wholesale. So 115%, if I move the decimal point 2 to the left, is 1.15 of X equals $299. So here, X, the normal wholesale purchase, is going to be $260. So this particular table, the store buys it at $260. But that's not what the question says. The question says, what is the usual price? And the question said that the price is the wholesale cost plus 75%. So this particular table, they bought it from the wholesaler at $260. They usually sell it at an increase of 75%. So basically, 75% of 260. So what do they normally charge for this table? It's 260 plus 75% of 260. So 75.75 of is times 260. So if you do this on your calculator, you get 195. So if you do 260 plus 195, that's how much they would normally sell the table. So in this case, answer choice B, $455. So you had to find what the furniture store paid for it itself, and then figure out what it would charge its customers normally. So in this case, the table is $455. Problem 34, in the xy plane, the point 2, 5 lies on the graph of this function. So if the function f of x equals k minus x squared, where k is a constant, remember a constant is just a number, so k is just a number, find the value of k. Well, remember function notation f of x is just a fancy way of saying y. Y is equal to k minus x squared. Well, they give you a point, 2, 5. Remember, all points, the first value is x, the second value is y. So for this particular function, x is going to be 2 and y is going to be 5. So I'm going to plug those values in. Y is 5. That equals k, that's what I'm trying to solve for, minus x squared. Well, in this case, x is 2, so 2 squared. So that gives me 5 equals k minus 4. So in this case, when I add 4 to both sides, k is going to be equal to 9. That's the constant in this question, 9. Finally, number 1, the table below classifies 103 elements as metal, metalloid, or non-metal, and as a solid, liquid, or gas at standard temperature and pressure. Here's the question. What fraction of all solids and liquids are metalloids? Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Well, they're talking about what fraction of all solids and liquids. So here, there's 90 total solids. Here, there's 2 total liquids. So all solids and liquids together are 92. So they want to know what fraction of all solids and liquids, what fraction of the 92 are metalloids. Well, in this case, if I look at these 2 columns, I'm looking at the solids and the liquids. Here, the gases are not relevant to this question. I want to know what fraction of the 92 are metalloids. So here I'm just going to add up the metalloids for the solids and liquids. So in this case, that's going to be 7 total. So here it's going to be 7 out of 92. And they want to know what fraction that is. I would try to reduce it, but I don't think you can. So there's your answer. The fraction 7 out of 92.